Hi folks, hope you all are doing well. I'm Karan Bandal from Economist site, your weekly wrap on economic news from India and around the world. So let's get started with India. India's inflation outlook for financial year 24. India's finance ministry has released an optimistic outlook on India's inflation situation for the upcoming financial year. While talking about inflation, we have to talk about oil. We know India imports roughly 83% of the oil it needs. So the movement in the price of oil directly impacts inflation in India in a major way. RBI projects an average inflation of around 5.3% for the financial year ending on March 2024, with the assumption that crude oil price will hover around $95 a barrel. It is currently sitting at around $87, and the forward markets indicate oil prices well below $95 a barrel. So, we may see inflation surprise us on the positive side. India's inflation peaked at 7.79% in April 22. It came down below the RBI's target range in November 22. The recent print in January 2023 was 6.52%. Provided January reading turns out to be a blip, trajectory is in line with what RBI desires. Also, RBI recently hiked its policy interest rate by 25 basis points to 6.5%. In general, almost all the central banks from major economies in the world have kept policy interest rates quite high, which means economic activity is less likely to shoot up, taking the pressure off from inflation. And thus, India's inflation risk in the near future is quite subdued or evenly balanced. Let's talk about China and its neighbors. China's reopening to boost South Korea. South Korea is expected to grow at 1.7% in 2023. It's an anemic forecast. South Korea's biggest trade partner is China. South Korea's biggest export market is also China. According to Korea International Trade Association (KITA), China's reopening should boost South Korea's growth. Specifically, expect growth to increase by 0.16%. Basically, China's reopening should provide a 10% boost to South Korea's initial growth projection. South Korea is not the only one to benefit. Taiwan and Singapore are expected to see a 10% boost to their growth. Vietnam should see a 3.5% boost. Now on to Europe. Europe's spend on energy crisis. A little background here. Russia-Ukraine war began in later part of February 2022. West imposed sanctions on Russia to dissuade Russia from continuing the war. In retaliation, Russia cut supply of energy, natural gas to European countries which rely heavily on Russia for their energy and heating needs. As a result, Europe started sourcing oil and natural gas from the US and other suppliers that are not Russia. This drove up energy prices for everyone. When COVID pandemic hit the world back in early 2020, all the major economies spent huge sums of money to shield their citizens from financial and physical ruin. First stimulus package in the US was worth $2 trillion. India spent about $250 billion. Europe's own COVID-19 recovery fund spending was $800 billion. Almost all the major economies have now recovered from the COVID-19 induced damage. They are going back to fiscal consolidation. Back to the point where I was saying Europe driving up energy prices for everyone. Europe, reeling from the consequences of Russia-Ukraine conflict, still finds itself needing to continue to spend money to protect their citizens from financial pain. Researchers pointed out that European countries' bill to shield households and companies from soaring energy costs has climbed to nearly $860 billion, surpassing COVID-19 recovery fund. Germany was the top spender at $290 billion. Britain, Italy and France were the next highest, spending a little below $160 billion. No wonder Europe is projected to do so poorly in the near term as far as economic performance is concerned. Back to India again, world's largest commercial aviation deal. Civil aviation is taking off in India. In the last 8 years, the number of airports in India have gone from 74 to 147, almost doubled. The number of flyers in 2022 grew 47% to 123 million. Furthermore, Center is trying to revive or develop 100 unserved landing sites. In early 2022, India's Tata Group bought a loss-making national carrier, Air India, from the government. Tata has big plans to transform the airline and build a world-class carrier known for safety, on-time performance, the best of Indian hospitality, and modern fleet. As part of that plan, Tata's Air India just signed the largest commercial aviation deal ever. Tata Group will buy 470 aircraft from AIRBUS and Boeing. Boeing gets $34 billion worth of orders and Airbus $35 billion. You can see on the screen the detailed breakdown of the total quantity ordered. US President Joe Biden hailed the historic agreement with Boeing. The purchase will support over 1 million American jobs across 44 states, and many will not require a 4-year college degree, he stated. And French President Emmanuel Macron highlighted the political and economic importance of the Airbus deal. So the world is expecting a major boost to global growth due to China's reopening. So far, a very few economies have experienced that boost. Even China's neighbors are seeing a very minimal improvement. But we'll keep tracking the data. Europe continues to be in fiscal stress, and the longer Russia-Ukraine war stretches on, it will continue to be so. India's inflation seems to be moderating, barring a spike in January, and Tata-owned Air India's aircraft deal with Airbus, Boeing, has much wider significance beyond just the dollar value. I hope you enjoyed this week's wrap. I'll speak with you again next week. Until then, take care.